you so much for joining us on BBC News. Now, I don't know if you remember, we heard in a report that we played just a few moments ago an extremely angry lady who we actually spoke to here in the studio not long ago, describing these youth as feral rats. Really strong terms, real anger from communities. Now, you work with young people in these areas. What's your reaction to that?
I mean, for many of these youth, they don't like the government, they don't like the authorities, they don't like law and order. They haven't had law and order in their families. Many of them grow up in broken homes. They come from an area whereby they're surrounded by negative influences with negative people, and whereby there's no discipline, there's no control. And so then what we've got then is young people out there that have no control. I mean, they're very strong words to be used, and there's many youth which we work with, which I would not describe in the same way. They have a great deal of potential. However, it's just channeled in the wrong direction.
I suppose the use of the word feral, though, is interesting when you say that some of these young people don't have discipline at home, don't have boundaries, grow up in very negative environments, and it's a kind of sort of survival of the fittest on the streets, isn't it, almost?
Well, I would agree, and I would agree, and I would also disagree. I mean, I grew up in the middle of Tottenham as a young person. I was surrounded by negative influences. In fact, Mark Duggan went to the same school I went to in Tottenham, and nonetheless, I didn't end up in the same way as many of these young people. They are surrounded by negative influences. There's people which influence them in a negative way, which cause them to react and behave in a certain way. There is an area here which is a conscious thought to do wrong. They want to feel powerful. They want to feel as though they're in control because people haven't invested in them. Many of them suffer with illiteracy problems. The key thing that I think we need to be looking at now is how do we solve the solution? How do we solve these problems? How can we get into the mind of the young person? The most dangerous thing on the street, it's not the knife, it's not the gun, it's not the bats they're picking up. The most dangerous thing on the street is the minds of young people. How can we impact the minds? We need to do it through the schools. We need to provide positive role models within the schools. We need to have young people which are succeeding in developing and use these young people as role models for them.
What if they're not going to school?
If they're not going to school, then we need to engage them through the youth centres. We have to get back into the youth centre. I know a lot of money has been stripped away from youth centres. Many of the provisions that were there in terms of the organisations that were providing such services as CV writing, interview skills, developing their life skills and functional skill training, a lot of the funding has gone from this. So if we can get money back into the youth centres and help with these type of services which work alongside the schools, extended services to deal with those excluded young people to get them back in. But
is the will there, though? I mean, it's all very well laying on these ways to help these young people who perhaps have lost their way or perhaps don't have the privileged upbringings that some others do. But is the will there for them to break out of these negative patterns? Do they want to?
Well, the thing is, some of them don't. Some of them are locked in and they are continuing to carry on in this manner. There needs to be the strong hand of the law. They need to be held accountable for what they're doing that is wrong. But what we've got then is the youth, the ones which are below that early intervention, where you're talking about 5 and 6, before they even get to the level whereby they're headstrong and they want to stay in that. We've got to get into the minds of the youth earlier. Early intervention is key. 5 and 6, when they begin to form their opinions, we've got to be in the primary schools. We have to be talking to the youth at a younger age.
This work is going on. You know, you do it, other people do it. It's happening in these areas.
That's right.
So how do we come to this, where this is going on in the streets of London?
Well, there's a great deal of tension, and what's taken place is a number of cuts which have taken place. Many of the youth services are not doing it to the same capacity that they were doing it before. They've lost staff because they're unable to pay the staff. Volunteers are trying to put in, but they've also got to live. So we've got that problem. What we really want is for the government to listen to the communities. I mean, I heard the interview with the mayor, with some of the people that were very angry, and the problem that was happening there is that he wasn't listening to them. And this is the key thing: the youth need people to listen to them. What do the young people need? What do they want?